$80? $80? $80? Chat, is this real? So we just finished watching the Switch 2 reveal, and really interesting. First of all, yeah, they had the whole 1080p 120 frames per second claim. I don't think that we're actually getting 120 frames per second on most games, and the screen appears to be 120 hertz, which is actually going to have a pretty decent impact on the way the games look on portable mode. So that's actually pretty awesome. I was also pretty impressed that it's 1080p on a handheld, right? Because I'm pretty sure even Steam Deck is 720p. So that's actually a pretty positive leap forward, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't imagine games like Cyberpunk doing like 120 frames per second, but I'm sure there are probably maybe some Switch 1 ports that will do 60, maybe some stuff that's like able to do 120. The big reveal also too was the C button. So we finally know what the C button does. It enables the chat feature, which is kind of like Nintendo Switch Discord. I think it's cool, but I also think too that it's kind of a feature that we've had on other consoles since like a long time ago. You know, at least just being able to voice chat. I do think the actual video chat feature of it is kind of neat. The only problem I have is with the game share itself. Whenever you were looking at the gameplay in the preview window, it was like sub 20 frames per second. You were literally watching a slideshow. And I thought whenever that they clicked on the preview window and whenever it expanded, it was going to be like, oh, okay, it'll correct and it'll be normal frame rate. But actually, unfortunately, it still shows very slow, very choppy, like gameplay. I guess if you really want to watch, you know, your friends playing, it's great. But, you know, compared to like other hardware, like a PlayStation, for example, whenever you're streaming that footage onto someone else, you can actually get pretty decent resolution and frame rate through stuff like remote play even. So I was expecting maybe that to look a little bit better, but I mean, it is cool that Nintendo has, or at least is trying to finally catch up in terms of their suite of online feature. But even still, it doesn't necessarily look quite as good as say any other platform and like what they're doing. And honestly, I think I'd probably just use Discord over this because it's just going to probably be a better experience. I'm glad that it's there. I'm glad that there's an attempt to improve their online, and I don't know what the price of the Nintendo Switch camera is, but I don't know if I personally will be purchasing one because I just don't see myself using that feature. I don't know about you guys, but it just, Other than that, Game Share is back, so you can actually buy your game, your multiplayer game, on like one Switch 2 copy and like share it with like another Switch 2 hardware. This was like a big feature on Nintendo DS, where you only needed to own like one copy of the game and then you can share it with like another Nintendo DS. I'm a huge fan of that feature, actually. I think that's like the coolest feature in the world. I'm glad that you don't need to own multiple copies of a game anymore. So that actually coming back is huge. Very, very, very big fan of that. DP the God, thank you so much for the super chat. 450 price is right. Wario64 just tweeted the info. Let me see. Okay. Nintendo Switch 2 launches at $449.99, bringing new forms of communication to life. Pre-orders begin April 9th. Okay, awesome. Really weird that wasn't like included in the stream. I feel like it would have made a lot of sense to include it there at the end, you know? I think that $449 is reasonable. You can really tell that they did not want to push to 500 because normally consoles are never like, there's never like a 50 at the end of this. They really did not want to push to 500. Now, if I was Sony watching this, I want it to be smart and capitalism really well. What I would do is I would be like base PS5 $399. That would be like the best move, or at least the digital version, right? Be like base PS5 digital $399, PS5 with the disc $449. That's what I would do. The OLED edition that will come out in 3 years will be $500. Of course it will. Of course it will, right? They have to save some stuff so that you'll go back and you'll buy that OLED edition. I wonder what that is in British money. Can't convert because I'm sleep deprived right now. Probably like roughly the equivalent. But also too, another important thing to note is that maybe this like 50 at the end, because again, normally there are like, you know, it's normally like a nice round price with like, you know, a 99 and not a 49. This also could technically be factoring in the tariffs. So I'm like willing to also bet that it's possible that Switch 2 was going to be 400 and then increase the price by $50 to account for the tariffs. That's also a strong possibility. Not saying I know that's what's happening. I probably would leave myself a little bit of wiggle room so we don't have to have like a mid-gen price increase, which we have seen happen with PS5 in some territories where they have bumped the price of the PS5 and not like the tariffs necessarily from the current administration in the US, but because of inflation happening globally and they had to actually increase the price. So if we're looking at something like PS5 inflation and them having to increase the price in certain territories, adding an extra $50 on there to account for, you know, China tariffs that are happening in the US makes perfect sense to me. Tariffs absolutely matter. They aren't going to want to bump the price $50 3 months from now. Right, exactly. So the tariffs are going to be a big factor in this, and there's probably no getting around that, and they probably already accounted for it. In all my days, I really can't think of a time where a console, like the base console itself, launched with the $50 increment. Normally is like a straight like $100, if you know what I mean, 300, 400. So a 50 increment is interesting. First time that I can recall we've seen something like that. Other than that, you're gonna have to purchase upgrade packs. I don't know if chat has found anything on the purchase of upgrade packs. Like, how much are those going to be? So we talked about it during the stream, but Sony has also done some purchasing of upgrade packs as well, but it also depends, right? So like when Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate came out, the PS5 version of that, if you had Final Fantasy VII Remake, it was a free upgrade. If you had like God of War and you had a lot of other Sony first party games, those games would have free PS5 compatibility patches. However, it does seem to be the case that Nintendo is charging for these upgrade packs. They've also kind of hinted that with these upgrade packs though, it's not just the increase in resolution and frame rate that they're doing. It's also, there's a couple of new features included that are Switch 2 specific, whether it's like the controls or the new use of the app. It seems like that's the reason that they're charging, but ultimately I do feel like these compatibility patches and like charging for it is just kind of ridiculous. It's one thing if it comes with like new textures and like they've actually enhanced the graphics and the game is actually remastered. That much I don't mind paying an upgrade fee for if I already own the game. However, when it's just upping the resolution and the frame rate, by the way guys, to up the resolution and frame rate, all you have to do is like literally just go into the code and just change the resolution. Like it takes like 2 seconds, not even the code. You like literally open a configuration file that's not even in the code. So you don't even have to rebuild the game and you just change like a couple of numbers. So I'm hoping that, you know, maybe maybe this is going to be cheap. Maybe some of the new features will justify themselves. I'm hoping that it's not going to be something like, oh, if you own the game, it's like a $20 fee, $10 at the most. I kind of think it should be even lower than that. I think it should be like $5 to like $7, no more than $8 to upgrade. I know it's just a few dollars, but honestly, you know, considering what they have to do to upgrade those games and how easy it honestly is to do, because again, it's literally just changing a configuration file. Like it's not, you're not doing deep work in the code in order to make those games run at higher resolutions and frame rates. It's not like, you know, making it run at higher resolutions and frame rates on the same hardware, which requires a ton of optimizations and other stuff. This is like, again, literally just changing a configuration file that you can do. So again, I don't really mind. Hopefully it's fairly priced. Okay, so I do see some people in chat saying they're disappointed that Final Fantasy IX Remake is not going to be here. It would have been hype if it were here at the Switch 2 Direct. But I even said in my video video or my stream, if you saw last time, that while I do think it would have been the best move, I didn't really anticipate it to be here necessarily. It would have been the smartest move, but I don't think it was necessarily what they were going to do. So maybe we'll see it at a different point. FF9R Summer Games Fest, that would be awesome. No, 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 no. $80? $80? $80? $80? $80? Chat, is this real? Chat, is this real? $80? $80? No. Yes, the price of video games is going to be going up to $80, which is exactly why I'm going to show you how to save a ton of money on games thanks to our sponsor, Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is an authorized code reseller that gives you Steam codes at a much lower price. First Berserker Kazan is normally $60, but on Instant Gaming it's only $46. Pre-order The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered on PC and only pay $43. An incredibly good deal. And each month you can enter to win a free game of your choice, with last month's winner winning Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So be sure to check out Instant Gaming with a link in the description or pinned comment below. I'm crying in Australian. Please tell me this is the Australian price and not USD. In Americas will be the same price for digital and physical. In Europe, physical editions will be even more expensive. Oh man, it's true. People were saying that the tariffs, oh my god, the tariffs, that's right, the tariffs. I've seen so much talk about this. They've been saying that the tariffs would increase the price of digital games. That's right. But wait, no, it can't be the tariffs, because it says in America, the price will be the same for digital and physical. In Europe, the physical editions will be more expensive. So is it the tariffs? I don't know if it's the tariffs or not. Bro, do you guys know how bad Nintendo just effed the video game industry with this? Because guess what's gonna happen? You guys know what's gonna happen right now, right? Every new PS5 game is going to be $80 is what this means, because Sony is going to see this and like basically all the publishers are going to see this and be like $80. Yeah, no, if anything, Sony will be like $100 for PS5 games. Oh my god, dude, we are so cooked. We are so cooked. No, developers have been trying to push up costs for titles for a long time. They have, but basically this gives them the authority to do it. It's got nothing to do with tariffs. They've been wanting to raise prices for a long time. Yeah, you're right. It does. I don't think it has anything to do with tariffs, and the reason is because it says here in the Americas the price will be the same for digital and physical. However, in Europe, physical editions will be more expensive. So physical is like dead in Europe, like straight up, because our people, I mean, I guess like maybe not, like some people are probably going to pay more for digital or for physical in Europe. Dude, that's a lot of money. Like for me, I'm probably just gonna save, you know, the money. Let me see. So that's like 10 euros, right? Okay, so I was expecting Nintendo Switch 2 games to be $70, but I was not expecting them to be 80. We saw the price raise with Tears of the Kingdom. So I was expecting, okay, Tears of the Kingdom is setting kind of like it's testing the waters. This is what it's going to look like going forward. Nintendo games are also going to be $70 now. Sony is charging $70. I guess what like rubs me kind of the wrong way about Nintendo going $80 first is because at the very least with big AAA games, those games massive, right? Those games are really expensive to create. And we've also seen a lot of games, a lot of big AAA games, you know, I mean, look at like Final Fantasy 16 or Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, great games that did sell into the millions and still didn't meet like expectations, for example. And one of the ways that you can also meet those sales expectations is by raising the price and still selling the same amount. So I get like, okay, $80 for like the biggest cutting edge AAA game, but I feel like, I mean, Nintendo doesn't spend nearly as much in order to create their games, right? They're much smaller budgets, they're much more sustainable, and we like Nintendo for this reason. Like that's a good thing about Nintendo. But this is just crazy, dog. This is insane to me. $80, we really are going to reach the $100 video game in the next 5 years. I really do think GTA 6 is definitely $100 now. Hard confirms to me that GTA 6 is $100. I'm so disappointed in Square Enix. They just announced less than than a year ago that they weren't going they weren't doing the exclusive thing, and then they announced this Bravely Default remaster exclusively for Switch 2. Complete bullshit. Square Enix has become. Yeah, and I feel like does Nintendo publish or co-own Bravely? Is that why? I don't know. Maybe they publish it or like they not publish it, but like fund it in some way, because otherwise I do think that that's a bad move. I do think the better thing to do would have been to put Bravely Default on all platforms. Yeah, Bravely has pretty much always been exclusive to Nintendo, and I don't necessarily know why, if there is a business reason for it, if they have like an exclusivity deal like they have with Sony. I'm willing to bet that that's what it is, and honestly probably the majority of sales will come from Switch anyway, even if it was multi-platform. I do agree that it should be. Zelda/Talk Switch 2 upgrade packs are free if you own Switch Online expansion. That's kind of cool. Okay, that is cool. That is cool. I like that. I'm a fan of that. But $80 games. $80 game. I don't know. I don't know about this, man. Yeah, $80 for a game is when I'm out. That Nintendo pulled the trigger first. Like, that's what gets me. William, thank you for the super chat. No FF9, do you think it'll show at the PS show in May/June? I think that's the most reasonable place to expect to see it. No guarantees it'll be there too. I genuinely feel like it's in like some sort of development hell or some sort of trouble, because I think after 4 years and we haven't seen it, it's been like, I don't know. I feel like it's in some sort of like development trouble, because otherwise what the else is going on? It was leaked 4 years ago and we still haven't seen it. By the way, this is so funny now. Last night, before I went to bed, chat, I made a really bad post where I said, confirmed, a source with 91.6% accuracy has notified me that Bloodborne Remastered will be announced exclusively for Switch 2 tomorrow at the Direct. I've reached out to Sony for comment, and they responded, what the are you talking about, bro? Which is sad because they don't even know this is happening. And then my bro is like, classic Sony. Scratch my head. They didn't even know what Bloodborne was when we spoke. And I was right, chat. I was right. We are getting Bloodborne Remastered. It's not really Bloodborne, but it is a new FromSoft game that seems to be a sort of successor to Bloodborne in some way. At least that's what it looks like. We don't have any of the details yet, so we really don't know. Bro, Apollo hit you with that ball of prophecy. Excellent prophetic post, my lord. I know. What can I say, chat? What can I say? I am the Oracle. Dustblood honestly sounds like a sequel to Bloodborne, which makes it even more funny. Bloodborne is still locked to PS4, and then this game is now locked to Switch 2 exclusively. But also, making a Switch 2 exclusive FromSoft game is kind of infuriating. That makes me like super mad, because it's like, you know, I like to play FromSoft games on like PC, PlayStation. I guess Nintendo wrote them a check, which is crazy. FromSoft going from Sony to Nintendo is actually funny. Yeah, no, it's like the reverse of like Final Fantasy VII, right? They pulled the reverse Squaresoft. No, it's definitely going to be a timed exclusive for sure. I can't see it not coming to PlayStation or PC. Then again, guys, Bloodborne is still not remastered. Demon's Souls is still not on PC, so it's entirely possible that Duskblood will stay Switch exclusive. FromSoft is working on a bunch of games at the moment. All the big publishers want their own FromSoft exclusive. Who could blame them? That's like a guaranteed Game of the Year contender, probably a Game of the Year winner. I mean, every time FromSoft releases a game, it's either a contender for Game of the Year or it wins, right? Sekiro, Bloodborne was nominated, Elden Ring. Bloodborne would have won Game of the Year if it didn't come out the same year as The Witcher 3. Just a disappointing presentation overall, should be held to a higher standard. I think it was an okay presentation. I don't think it was the worst, but I don't think it was quite as strong as the Switch 1's presentation. Like when the first Switch came out, I feel like they came out like fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like the OG Switch had a pretty strong presentation, at least from memory. Someone can correct me if my memory failing me, but I just remember that the first Switch, you know, really came out strong. This is not bad though by any means, but it's very much just iterative off Switch, and I think it's pretty good. But yeah, it's probably not gonna have the same effect as say when we saw the OG Switch the first time. And also the game lineup, probably not as strong, right? Because, you know, in addition, Breath of the Wild, which yes, was available on Wii U, which no one even owned. So they were looking at Breath of the Wild as the brand new Zelda game that was launching for Switch. Very massive title to have as a launch title. And people ran and picked that up, and it was amazing. It worked really well. So I don't think that, like, in terms of game lineup that's been teased, or in terms of like the sheer wow factor of it, because again, the system is iterative, which is what we wanted. You know, we wanted Switch 2 to be Switch 2, but the impact of it is probably just not going to be as strong. So this is the list of launch titles for the Switch 2. Split Fiction, Hogwarts Legacy, Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster, Deltarune Chapters 1 to 4, Civ 7, Survival Kids, Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, Kunitsu Gami, Path of the Goddess, Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma, Nobunaga's Ambition, Awakening Complete Edition, Fast Fusion, Fortnite, and Arcade Archivers, Ridge Racer, Arcade Archives to Ridge Racer. And then also from Nintendo, it's just Mario Kart World and Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. So this is not like the strongest launch lineup necessarily ever, unless you are only locked into like the Nintendo ecosystem and these games are like what you'll be playing. So for me, I'll probably pick my Switch 2 up, and the game that I'm going to be buying here is Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster, because that's like the most appealing thing to me. In terms of like Cyberpunk 2077 or anything like that, I'd always rather play that just on a PC because that's just the place to play it. You know, most of these other ports will run on my Steam Deck and other stuff. So Dustblood is a multiplayer game, by the way. Okay, so it's not a new single player FromSoft Bloodborne Sekiro type game. It's like a Night Rain. I'm good. I'm good then. I'm not that excited for it then. Well, maybe I am. I'm lying. I'm still gonna play it, but I would be more excited if it was like a brand new Bloodborne game and like not like a multiplayer thing. I'm still gonna play Night Rain too, but like the Moon Eaters will float for one and one alone in the Dustbloods, a brand new multiplayer title from the creators of Dark Souls and Elden Ring. Oh. And they're describing it as a multiplayer game, not like as a single player game that features multiplayer, but they're describing it as a multiplayer game. So if that's the case, my excitement is a little bit tempered for Dustblood, because I was hoping that was going to be like the next big FromSoft game. But at the same time too, I think that we're years off from the announcement of the next big FromSoft game, like the next like Elden Ring or Bloodborne or Sekiro, like whatever is going to be next in terms of like their next Souls-like title. We're probably a very long way off after Elden Ring. Okay, so we got some of the prices here from the Nintendo Switch website that Wario64 shared. The Switch 2 Pro controller is $80. The Joy-Cons are $90. The camera is $50, and the dock set is $110. Okay, the camera actually is like a little bit cheaper than I was expecting. I don't know why. I thought the camera was gonna be like $80. The Joy-Cons are what? Yeah, the Joy-Cons are $90, dude. That's crazy. But there's a lot of tech in the Joy-Cons, you know, and technically it is two controllers. So technically it's two $45 controllers if you want to look at it like that, which does make it sound a little bit more reasonable when you think of it like that. I mean, you know, Joy-Cons are really expensive to manufacture because essentially they have to have two batteries in them, two like internal parts for like the Bluetooth and all that other stuff. So not to like go too deep into justifying the price, but we need a Nintendo sponsored stream where NSP struggles to convince us to buy their $80 games. I mean, Nintendo, my email address is in the bio, so reach out to me. I will have these guys buying $80 games. I mean, chat just needs me to tell them. Chat will listen to anything I tell them to do. Isn't that right, chat? If I say jump, chat says how high. Nintendo, all you have to do is sponsor me and I will get these guys buying $80 games tonight. No, I am Night Sky Shill, you're right. For a new console direct, I give it like a B minus, maybe a C plus to B minus for a new console direct. It wasn't bad. I just didn't walk away hype. I don't think it was bad though. I don't think it was bad. It's not bad. It just also wasn't like I'm so locked in Switch 2. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like, oh my God, I need to pre-order now. Like, you know, I didn't really leave with that feeling. I just left with I would love to pick up a Nintendo Switch 2 eventually in the future, I guess. But I didn't have the urge, right? Like the urge to be like, oh my God, I need it now. Is it a legit performance / resolution upgrade from what you saw? No, it is. It is a legit upgrade. Like they're actually targeting some modern standards, it looks like. But I do think that they probably should have teased a little bit more some of the upcoming stuff. They decided to focus on what you will immediately be able to play. I do think when it comes to like going and buying the console on day one, you do need to see like what the first year and beyond is gonna kind of look like. They should have teased a few holiday titles in the montage. No, I agree. I like 1000% agree. If anything, just being able to play the Switch 1 games with better frame rates and better resolution is awesome. I'm a little disappointed though that they only talked about Zelda for that and like a few other titles. No game on Nintendo Switch needs it more than the Xenoblade games. And it's very unfortunate that the Xenoblade games weren't announced for the upgrade pack. That would have been kind of a day one thing for a lot of people. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 especially, yeah. And then Xenoblade Chronicles X, which just came out, the remaster, that is. Having an upgrade pack for that or some type of compatibility for Switch 2 would have been awesome. See, I don't think 1 and 3 are fine in terms of resolution. I think that they are 1 is still really blurry. But yeah, 2 is probably the worst. Maybe they'll do a Xenoblade trilogy upgrade. I mean, for sure. Eventually it's gonna happen. But I would have loved to have seen that for day one. I wonder how many games are going to actually run at 60 frames per second though on Switch 2. I'm willing to bet not many. I'm also really curious if this generation of Switch is going to finally introduce like resolution versus frame rate modes. Nintendo's, first of all, hello Blitz. Nintendo's first 4K showcase crashed as I expected. That's funny. That was in 4K, right? And that was their first one because of Switch 2 supporting 4K, and it did crash. So I'm also really curious about Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate Switch 2. I'm incredibly fascinated to see what that's going to do in terms of the sales for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1. So Remake Part 1 is at 7 million, which is like roughly average for Final Fantasy in terms of sales. Like the medium end of Final Fantasy titles kind of doing between like 6 and 8 million. So I'm actually very curious if the Switch 2 port is going to push that game to 8 or 9 million. I could see it adding another million to the sales of that game overall, purely predicated on how many people will finally pick that title up in Japan. I might be being too optimistic. On the lower end, I think it'll add like at least like a 500,000 units on, but I think that we can get to 8 million. It'll be more interesting to see what it can do for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It does seem like Hamaguchi was teasing at the end there that they want to bring more of the Final Fantasy VII Remake project to Switch 2, and judging by some of the games that they're gonna have running on this thing, like Cyberpunk 2077, I am kind of willing to bet that they can get Rebirth working on the Switch 2. I mean, they got it working on the Steam Deck, and it's not the greatest on Steam Deck, but it definitely does work. I think that they optimized it really well for Steam Deck so that they could, you know, take a lot of those optimizations and bring them forward to Switch 2 and hopefully get it working on Switch 2. Now, prior to this, I was confident that FF7R was coming to the Switch 2 because there just had been so many rumors on FF7R. What is curious is that we haven't had any rumors on Final Fantasy 16 coming to Switch 2. So I don't know if that has something to do with Sony or whether it's just easier to do because the remake trilogy is running on Unreal Engine and Unreal Engine is incredibly scalable. But it's really curious that they're not doing much more with 16. Isn't there an internal thing about 16 requiring way more processing power to even work? Well, it does make sense, right? Because 16 absolutely cannot run on a Steam Deck for sure. Final Fantasy 16 has a proprietary engine that was built for the exact purpose that the game was made for, right? It probably is not as optimized to run on as many platforms, and so I imagine it doesn't have the scalability that something like Unreal Engine has. If FF7 Rebirth is struggling to look good on PS5 Pro, how in the world is Rebirth gonna look any better on Switch 2? Brother, it's not. But it's not gonna matter because it's gonna be on Switch and no one's gonna care. At least that's kind of like my theory on it. I think that, you know, people will just feel like there is a novelty to having Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on a Switch 2. You know what I'm saying? And they're not going to judge it as harshly. They're just going to be like, oh my god, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on Switch 2. You know how Nintendo stands especially are when it comes to that? So they aren't going to care at all. They're just going to be like, oh my god, I can finally play this on the correct platform, which is Nintendo Switch. That's how they'll be. And like they won't care that like it looks worse and it runs worse, and that'll be it. People seem fine with Hogwarts Legacy on Switch, right? Bro, people are fine with The Witcher 3 on Switch, which I personally think is an abomination. The way that thing looks and runs, I look at that and I'm like, dude, hell no. There's no way in hell I'd play that. But like people are fine with it. The Nier Automata Switch port actually looks good, by the way. Like it runs 1080p 30, you know, 30 FPS for Nier Automata. It does kind of suck, but like for what it is, it's not bad. It doesn't look ugly. So yeah, I mean, you know, I think if people are fine with the way like The Witcher 3 looks on Switch, like well enough to play it, then I don't even think people are going to complain, dude. I think they're going to be fine with however Final Fantasy VII Rebirth looks on Switch 2, and it'll be blurry and it'll run at like 30 FPS. Maybe if it's able to use like something like the DLSS like stuff for frame rate, maybe it'll get like to some kind of wonky 60. Yeah, that's all I'm expecting. Oh my god. Okay, they actually charge you way less, but if you buy a Japanese only system, then it's only $333. That's what that converts to. I mean, that makes me think that tariffs are like a huge thing for this. I might honestly just buy a Japanese system, because for me, like, why wouldn't I? I'm learning the language anyways, and I can read enough Japanese to navigate menus and shit. Are the games region locked? That's my only question. Because if the games aren't region locked, then why the hell would I buy a US Switch? I could definitely probably read like most of the Japanese menus like fine. I don't think it'll be region locked because of the Switch 1 retro compatibility. Dude, if that's the case, I'm just gonna buy a Japanese Switch. But this also tells me that this has to be the tariffs. It either has to be the tariffs or they're willing to sell at a loss in Japan. That's the problem. The games could be region locked. The games have to be region locked. But I'm actually fine with the games being region locked, provided that if the games are region locked, I have an option to switch them to English, right? Like they have like the audio and text available in them. That wouldn't be too terrible. Yeah, I was going to say their economy hasn't been too strong, which I'm sure is a factor. Yeah, no, that's a huge factor. But I'm actually like willing to bet maybe they're taking a hit like to be able to make it more affordable for Japan. That or it's the tariffs. Like those are the only two things I can think of. You have to import all your games too then, right? No, because I buy all games digital. I don't buy physical games anymore. So that wouldn't even be an issue for me. And like, what if the games are cheaper in Japan too? Like, what if all the games are like $10 less? It feels likely to be the tariffs. Nintendo being that nice is a once in a blue moon thing. Dude, it has to be the tariffs. I don't think we've ever seen that I can recall a price difference of $100 for Japan versus the US. Has that happened before? I don't think I can recall that. There's never been this big of a price difference outside of game bundles. Yeah. Each region, this thing costs something different, and the games cost something different in each region. That's ridiculous. To be fair, the Japanese economy wasn't even great before the tariffs. Yeah. I mean, a big reason that the PS5, it doesn't sell well in Japan also has to do with the fact that it's really expensive there. So I didn't even know this personally until very recently. The average Japanese salary is 29 grand a year, and the median salary is closer to 25 grand. So compared to the US, that's a lot lower. Is it net or raw? I don't think it says. Full-time workers in Japan earn a monthly salary of 300,000 yen before taxes. Yeah, that's like 31 grand. So average annual salary in the US right now is like 63,000, right? So our annual salary is maybe double that of like the average Japanese annual salary. Metroid has resolution and performance mode. I wonder if it's others too. I hope so. I hope that this is the generation where we like finally get that introduced properly. I'm willing to bet that we will. So all of this is to say that, yeah, it kind of makes sense that the price is going to be like this. But yeah, guys, I mean, this is the first console launch that we've seen having to deal with all these things. The rapid inflation is just going crazy right now. They also have to deal with the tariffs that are going on, and so there's different pricing happening in each region. But I think this is insane though too. It also shows the greatest degree of disparity that we've ever had for like console pricing in each region.